Okay, so here a little video on starting with the rippled stitch. I find it fairly confusing yet and still learning. I still have to learn a lot about it, but I just want to show you a few things. And I have basically I'm going to be working with one kind of shape a little bit, and then getting all these different ripple stitches. So I'll explain a few things on how I did that. So I'll cancel out of this screen, and these are the shapes I made. So with these two, that are just two individual shapes. As you can see, that is just an individual shape, and I just created two of them, or I flipped the one, made a duplicate and flipped it horizontally and moved it over to the side, and that's what I did with this one. This second one, as you can see, if I'm clicking on it, it is as one object. And what I did with these two, I went and made a copy of the first one, or the first two, and then went to path and combine. So these two are a combined piece, just like we do with a satin kind of. With this third one, that is a copy of this same one, and then I went and made a guide in between. So to make a guide, all we need to do is we go to the Bezier tool, and we create a line, and then what we do is we go extension, inkstitch, edit, and then we go selection to guideline. Selection to guideline. And then we get this this icon showing up on there. Then in order to use that, I'll go and delete this one. And so in order to use that with a shape, then what we have to do is we select the shape, and we select or let me do I'll show you here for a moment. Object, ungroup. So this object, that is two of those shapes and a guideline. So then what we'll do is we'll go and select all of them, and we go and object and group them. That is all what is necessary with the guideline as far as I know. Then I made a copy, and with the node edit tool, here with the node edit, I went and took this guideline, and I made this guide short on the next one. As you can see, this is a really short guide, and here I'm going all the way across the two shapes. And how these guides exactly affect the shapes, I have not 100% figured it out yet on how they affect the shapes perfectly. Then I did one with only one half of the one object, and I gave a guide a curved line, and I should maybe adjust that one, change that one a little bit, make it not as curvy. And then I did just a half a shape with a guide, and also that is, if you go to select, then you can see that is a group. You can see that in the objects panel. This is one group, this is grouped, this is grouped, that is two ungrouped, and this one, that is just a combined path. As you can see, here are the four groups, and these are the three individuals. So that is this one as a combined path, and these two individuals. So, and then what we do is, I'll go and select everything, and then we go extension, inkstitch, params. Then we first got the running stitch showing up on the path. Then we switch it over to the ripple, and then we get right away, we get that every single shape is gonna show up differently. And so this first one, that was the two individual paths. So it treats each one as an individual one, and it will create the ripple. Then on the second one, that was a combined path, and as you can see, we see the one half of the heart here and the one half over there, and it fills everything in between. This one, that was a half a heart shape with a guide. So then it takes the distance between from the shape to the guide, and it creates the lines in between. And that is the same here. Here we have the half heart the other direction, plus here the difference, what you can see is it shows up differently because we gave that guide a curve, so that shows different. Then in this one we had the two half shapes plus a short guide on the bottom. And yeah, what shall I say? Then it seems like it's going from the top more down to the bottom. And here we had a guide all the way across the shape. But what I noticed also, and why that is exactly, I don't know. But the one side, this side, it looks like it has a complete finish line. And not on this side that still looks open. So there's still more things what I would need to explore, but we can also explore by just creating a few shapes, and now we can start playing with some of the numbers. Here the number of lines, that is fairly straightforward. We can make that 15. So then it goes from the start point to the end point, and it creates 15 lines in between. So that is basically, that is your density setting. Here that is your repeat. That is basically your running stitch repeats. You can set here as a bean stitch. The running stitch length, that is self-explanatory. And the running stitch tolerance. The tolerance, That basically has to do with how sharp your shape is gonna be staying. So if you go and make that, for instance, 2 mil, then you will see that with some of the shapes, I think especially on this first one, you can see that the best. There you get now pointed corners. If I change it back to 0.2, and now you can see now we have straight ends on the end here, and like at the 2, then we were getting pointed ends. So that is the distance between the points. The program decides if it is gonna be, it will allow, how shall I say that now? If the stitch points between 2 points becomes less than the number entered, then it will change the points to a spot where that distance is allowed. So at 2 mil, now I'll do that once more, and I'll zoom in. If we would go and look at this in a simulator, then we would see that the distance from this point to that point, that would be 2 mil, and there would be 2 mil, or between all the points that would be at least 2 mil. So then it decides in that way what the stitch direction becomes in order to get the right distances in the shapes. Then let's see. Then the grid size, that can become interesting too. Okay, let's go from the top to the bottom here. Skip first line. So if you want to skip the first line in the sequence, then we can go and skip the first line, and we can go and skip the last line by applying certain effects. With the rippled stitch, we can have that the first line or the last lines, they don't show up nice, as you can see in this last one. And then if you want to go and take away a few of the lines, so I'll go enter here the last lines, and I'll put that at 3. And there you can see everything has taken away the last 3. And for the first lines, we can also do the first lines. So there you can see every time it will change the outlook of the shape. So we'll skip, and the one that this one, if you want to get rid of that curly, we probably have to take away one more. So if I go there to the 5, and I'll change the first one to 0 again. So that way it becomes a lot of playing around with these numbers to make it all look good. As you can see now in this last object, that funny curl has disappeared now. And that may have to happen with some other application too yet. Here we can change the line distance exponent. I found that fairly confusing. That didn't seem to really want to work for me too well. As you can see, in certain objects it is more visible on what is happening than other objects. As you can see here in the first one, you can really see the line exponent, because the density on the inside is really dense, and toward the outside it is really open. And the same here, you can see there's a lot of distance between this edge and the first line, and then it becomes denser as it goes. But then with some of the other objects, we don't really see that density too well showing up. And as you can see here, we have a really funny looking one. So we'll have to explore a little more on that, and as I find out more, I'll post some videos on it. And that is the same here on this object. The first one is way out of line with all the rest, and that is the same on this one also. So then we can go skip the first line. If I go skip the first line, and then probably as you can see on this one, it showed up way better now, but on this one there it still doesn't show up nice. So I don't know if that is just me not putting in the right information here, or if it is a programming thing what needs to be further explored. Then we can go here, we can flip the exponent. So if we're flipping the exponent as it went wide here on the outside, and I think, okay, skip the last lines. I should go and change that for a moment, bring that back to the 0, and I go the first one, I'll change that to the 0. Then these are in the normal way. So there we have our full exponent again. The line distance exponent, so we leave that at 0.2, and now we go and flip the exponent. Then what we will see is the density goes, instead of that we had a dense on the inside, we'll have the density on the opposite side. And as you can see here, especially on the first one, it is really good visible that the density is denser on the outside than on the inside. But then as soon as we have the ones with the guidelines in there, then the exponent does not seem to have any effect. Okay, then we can also go and reverse. So basically all what that is it reverses the stitch direction, and that does not really have any effect on the shape or the layout of the design. Then we can add grid size, and I'll put that at 2 mil. And now you can see we can create all kinds of effects with a grid size. And if we even turn off the line distance exponent, we can put that, the default is 1, or 1, that means basically no change whatsoever. And there you can see we can create all kinds of effects with the grid size. So you can look at the bottom layer what we first had, the ripple stitch as an underlay, and this could be your top layer. So it takes a little bit of exploring, and what kind of grid size you want. So like normally we're running about a 0.25 as a fill stitch, and it becomes really hard to visualize it. So like then I would have to go and apply it and check it in the simulator how it would look. But you can go and play with that. I'll put it back to the backspace. Let me go to the 2 mil, then it becomes a little visible on the screen here with different settings. Then there is here the scale axis. The default is X and Y. I still have to do some more exploring on that also, but we can go and do it on an X axis. And now I can't even recall if it changed. We'll have to go once more on the XY. Yeah, as you can see, on some of the objects, it makes a difference what we are doing. Here we have the XY, and as you watch this shape over here, and now we are changing it to the X, and now we will see that the shape on the bottom, all of a sudden it really extends up. So there too, it takes some exploring with one specific shape and see what it does for you. Now we'll go and put it on the Y-axis. As you can see, there we have a complete different layout of all of our shapes and how it all affects. It is a little bit mind-boggling for me yet on how it exactly works, but it shows you something and gives you something to play with. And the starting scale, I have to explore that further too yet. I have tried some numbers, and it didn't, for some things it didn't seem to make a lot of difference, but now you can see again it really changed some of these shapes, and it seems to affect the shapes where there is a guideline. I'll put it back here on the 100 for a moment again. So like here on the 100%, there is a distance in between these shapes here, and we know that this one, or these four shapes, they have a guideline with it. So now we set a starting scale at 200. And there you can see that the shapes with the starting scale with the guidelines, they have become way larger. So that takes a little bit of playing around too to find out. And the ending scale, well, let's go and bring the starting scale to 100, and let's set an ending scale at 200 and see what happens. And there you can see too, it really changes on how the shapes perform, and it is especially on the shapes where the guidelines are implemented. And here the rotate, so I did not really see any difference. And I'll do it once more. I can't really say I saw really a difference there, but that still takes a little bit of playing and puzzling. And here the join style, and here it is flat, and you can go and change that to the pointed. And basically where that has to do with, that is the connection points at the end of the row. So if you make that pointed, let me see. It's hard to visualize it, some of these things, but it's got to do with the connections. Maybe these. Okay, now basically here, these underneath here, I think that's where it is the most visible. So that is a point there, and I will go to the flat. For some reason it didn't really seem to show up, but a join style, that is basically, that has to do with some of the shapes and how the lines, the thread lines connecting to the next one, and some of them they end up pointed. So that may be affected more by specific shapes for that matter. Okay, this is all where I want to leave you with, and take one shape and play with it. As you can see, there are many options. There is some information on the Inkstitch web page also on how they have created certain objects, and that's how I started exploring a little bit with it also. Okay, thanks for watching and have fun digitizing. Bye for now.